I'm going to call the work session for the Board of County Commissioners for March the 7th to order at this time. Want to let everybody know that Commissioner Cabarrus is en route from Raleigh. He's going to be here probably in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Commissioner Meismer is in Washington, D.C. at the National Association of County Organization, NACO, and I think that's for the entire week. No, excuse me, that's probably until Thursday. So, with that, we have the agenda that's before us. I would ask that Commissioner Poole and Commissioner Burge, if you'll look over the consent agenda, and if there is anything that you want to pull off the consent agenda, let me know. Otherwise, if we have a motion to place this under the consent agenda for March the 21st.
I'll make a motion to place it under consent. I don't have a problem with any of those items.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter we have is under new business G1 on page 70. Is the ECA, Cabarrus County Extension and Community Association 2010 review. At this time, I'd call on Mrs. Joyce Klutz and anybody else that you would like to come forward to let us know more about the ECA and all the great things that are going on there.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me this afternoon. I do represent Cabarrus County Extension and Community Association, and years ago we used to be known as Home Demonstration Clubs. And then we got changed to Extension Homemakers, and now we are Extension and Community Association. And right behind me we have our officers. Barbara Looney is our president. Barbara, right, wave. And Bobby Shapiris is our first vice president. Joan Martin Kovic, our secretary. Beverly Hooks could not be with us today, and we have Pat Wycliffe, our past president, and Debbie Boss, director of Cooperative Extension Center, Cabarrus Center, is with us also. Pam Uten is our liaison agent, and she is in Virginia. She's taking some classes on food preservation and safe food, so she'll be using that in the summer. And we also have Lynn Delozio, one of our good helpers. Just to let you know what's going on, we have a membership of 144 in 9 clubs scattered around Cabarrus County. And our mission is to strengthen families. And if you don't hear anything else, hear that. To strengthen families through educational support, leadership development, community service, and research-based information from North Carolina State and North Carolina A&T universities. There's lots of stuff on the internet, and not all of it is true, but you can always depend on Cooperative Extension to give you the research-based information. ECA is an extension and partnership between the Family and Consumer Science Program and Cooperative Extension, an outreach that extends education to families and individuals in Cabarrus County. It's just one arm of Cooperative Extension volunteers. There's lots of others out there. Now, Saturday, this last Saturday, March the 5th, we celebrated our accomplishments of 2010 with an achievement program. And Mr. Jay White was there for us to represent the commissioners, and he helped us dance the Wiggly Woo. Maybe he can do that sometime for you.
That will not be on camera.
Oh, goodness. But since Cooperative Extension receives funds from the county, the commissioners should really know what we do and the things that we're involved in. I do have a copy of the program for everyone. I need to refer to that, and I think Pat's got some, and they'll just pass it around to everyone. I've got one. And let you have our idea of what we do. And I'll call attention to number 3 in your typed information about certified volunteer units, CVUs. This is really important. We encourage our members to document all the hours that they do for organizations as extension, community, church, whatnot. And we had 107 reported a total of 62,816 volunteer hours. And of that, 29,459 hours were extension and community association cooperative extension, solely that. And the rest, 33,357, was church and various community and civic activities. And we put a value on that. We do it for nothing, but we still are valued, and we have $1,272,024 that we saved Cabarrus County. So we thought we did a pretty good job. That's a 20,000 hour increase from last year, and the reason for that is our state organization has devised a different way of, I guess, just really recognizing clubs and organizations, so people are really encouraged to keep those hours. And you see a little list below with some of our projects, but if you'll look on page 15 and 16 of your program, that is a page and a half of all the different civic and church and community that we are involved in through cooperative extension and ECA. This is benefiting Cabarrus County, and we also would like to benefit you all. So we have 11 sweet potato breads back here. So some of you, if the 11 people are here, you can have it. So you can decide who that is. But in addition to sharing our time, energy, and knowledge with the community, our clubs meet monthly for educational programs and address specific issues. And you can see those listed as number 4, some of the topics of our program. The one entitled Just Like Me is about diversity, and we need that training. And of course, Let's Have a Heart-to-Heart is talking about women's hearts and health. Then we have specific issues that can be addressed during the meeting, all of them or part of them, but these are things that Cabarrus County folks are interested in and want to learn about. And that's community connections, cultural arts, environmental, health and wellness, international, leadership growth, and strengthening families. And we also have area meetings, and these are publicized, and the public is really encouraged and invited to come to these meetings at the Extension office. We have them twice a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, with the exception of the June meeting, and that was lunch. We served them lunch, so we had a good group for that. Spice Up Your Life with Herbs was a Master Gardener program. They are fabulous, and if you need some help, call them for gardening or anything. They are a world of knowledge. And Cultivating Solutions to Hunger, we had the Director of Cooperative Christian Ministry to come, and one of their goals I thought was quite interesting, and that is to have emergency food in this county no further than 15 minutes away from anybody. They have 7 sites so far, and they're looking for others. So this is a real admirable goal of theirs, to have food available. And then in October, appetizers, easy and healthy. Our clubs got together and decided on some appetizers. If you have a time to have the black bean dip in there, it's in here. And the tortilla roll-ups, they're in this recipe book. And that was fun, and it was a packed crowd, to say the least. And then each county ECA organization throughout the state is supporting the Cook Smart, Eat Smart program. And then there's a Cook Smart, Eat Smart, Move More, Weigh Less. This is the book that is given when they have this class. We've had 2 classes in Cook Smart, Eat Smart. It is fabulous. It's gorgeous to begin with because it's so pretty. It's a grant from the Gore family, and this is the North Carolina Gores, not the Tennessee Gores. And she wanted to see that families could have time to eat together by having simple meals, easy, fast. And we've had 2 classes with this Cook Smart, Eat Smart curriculum, and 13 of us helped, and it was more fun We had gentlemen that came, one man from Salisbury. We asked him why he wanted to take this class. And he said he was rather tired of going through the drive-through every evening to feed his children. So he wanted something fast and simple, and that's what's in that book. Now, our agribusiness days at the Cabarrus County Fair, we provide 2 stations for that event, and it's called From Garden to Your Home. And we give this to each teacher. It really looks at the local produce. We have tomato recipes in there and sweet potatoes and all kinds of good things. And it's looking at your garden or someone else's garden, how it is put together and comes to your table. And our 6th graders, they shelled corn, they shelled peas, they ground fresh herbs with a mortar pestle. They tasted some dried tomatoes from my garden, learned about peanuts. And by the way, is peanut a nut? Peanuts, are they nuts?
Vegetable.
Aha, you all are good. They are, they're a bean. And where do they grow? These children didn't know where they grew. They thought they grew on trees. How you get a peanut? Where they grow? That's right, you have to dig them. And a lot of this was just really interesting. I think Barbara said one of hers in her station wanted to know where the pickle tree was. So, see? And so we counted heads, and we taught 926 6th graders for 3 days. And they were delightful, to say the least. And you do know that sweet potatoes are our state vegetable and the most perfect vegetable out there. And they learned a lot about that. And we fed them muffins. They love our station because we feed them. Now, our last item is Family and Consumer Science Agents, FCS. Everything's got abbreviations. They'll celebrate 100 years, May the 25th, 2011, and this will be at the McKinnon Center in Raleigh. And during this time, a 300-page book entitled Ordinary Women, Extraordinary Service is highlighting the past of home demonstration and the impact of family and consumer science and its volunteers. And it's very difficult to separate the two. Miss Jane McKinnon was our first agent, and her job was to go out into the rural area and teach women about food safety, better ways to grow things. She helped them make mattresses, just enormous amount of education going on to rural women. So the two were almost inseparable. They were clubs formed because of what she was teaching them. And I get a magazine entitled Perspectives. Does anybody else get this? Did you get that, John? Well, it's from the College of Agriculture and Life Science from North Carolina State. And in there is a wonderful article about our centennial. And I'm going to give you all a copy of that. I made copies for you and just want to read a single line here that says, in Cabarrus County, the first library was established in the home demonstration clubhouse, and that was Whitehall. Did you know we started the library? It's all kinds of good things like that in that book. Just a page for each county, but lots of pictures. And you find out that women got white lines painted on the roads. They got school buses going. They started libraries, bookmobiles. It's amazing. So when we have our centennial here in the county, I hope you all will make a real effort to come and celebrate this wonderful event. So, and thank you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Clay?
Well, I would like to just make a comment. I'd like to share your email address with some teachers I know. There's a FCCLA that just started this year at Concord High School, the Family and Consumer Science Co-Curricular Club.
Really? Oh, dear.
And they've been trying to get it started again, like I said, this year. And I'm sure they would appreciate the resource to be able to contact you. So
Okay.
I will share
That'd
that.
be
I'm not
wonderful.
certain about the other schools, the other high schools, which one has FCCLA, but I think that they would appreciate everything,
yeah.
Making a contact with you, and I'm sure that they have some ways they'd be able to use you, on campus.
Oh, we'd love to have some new folks.
Some of the comments you made about the peanuts is, I've heard Commissioner Burge say a lot of people, or some people have come up to him asking him about where things are grown, and how do, where you get the chocolate milk from, which cow company brings chocolate milk, and that's the sad part about some of the kids today is they just don't know where things actually come from and how they get to the plate in front of them and how they're made, how the things are made. But it's very important what y'all are doing, not only with that aspect, but through a lot of different things. And it was a special time on Saturday. It was fun. It's always fun to get out and meet the ladies. I got a chance to meet some new ones that I hadn't met before, and that was always a pleasure.
Good.
So, thank y'all for what y'all do. Commissioner Burge, Commissioner Caruth, thank you very much.
And we have lots of food for you to eat. And most of it is local, so do not miss the spread back there.
We will not. Next matter we have is G2, page 74, which is the Board of Elections presentation of the construction cost bid summary and update project ordinance. I would call on Mr. Downs at this point in time.
Yeah, I'll bring up Mr. Kreitzberg and Mr. Black as well to help me with this presentation. As you know, several years back we began to look for our new location for our Board of Elections. And so after an exhaustive search of sites, the board voted on the old Creamery building on Church Street North, and at that time we brought on Yates Kreitzberg, or Mr. Kreitzberg, and Bill Hughes to do the design work, and then also the board selected CM Black Construction, which is Emmett Black here, to be our construction manager at risk. As you know, we had already designed, had schematic drawings in place of several space needs and different features in an original building that was going to go at the old fairgrounds. We took that same concept, moved it over into the Creamery building, which is almost the same size, a little smaller than the first floor of what the other building was going to be. We moved some things around and created what you see there, and Mr. Kreitzberg is going to talk about that a little bit here shortly. As you know, we did hire Mr. Black as our CM at risk, so as the design was taking place, our CM at risk, our construction manager at risk, was on board, and he was doing preliminary budgets all the way through, and as things were being designed, he was pricing them out, and we were looking at, and we were sort of doing value engineering as that entire design process went along. So then we got to the point where we felt comfortable after doing several rounds of value engineering as we were going through the design process. We got to the point where we were all satisfied that this is what the space should look like. The Board of Elections were satisfied that this is the space that they needed and would accommodate them for several years to come. And we did, Mr. Black did another preliminary budget prior to us bidding it out. We took that number and then we took off into the bidding process. The packages were designed so in a manner that they were small enough that that local businesses were able to bid on the packages if they so choose. And the bids were taken. A minimum of 3 bids for every one of the packages were taken. So even with the construction manager at risk, it was publicly bid, and those bids were evaluated and negotiated at the end, so that we've come up with the final guaranteed maximum price, and then Mr. Black will talk a little bit about that in his packet there. It is, you don't have a book, it is, the electronic copy is in your packet on screen, and it would be page 80. Is that what you said, Bob?
Yep.
Page 80. And that would be your executive summary sheet. And Mr. Black's going to talk a little bit about that. Actually, it's 80, 81. We'll talk about a little bit about that, how he come up with the guaranteed maximum price, and what each of those line items there represent as far as price is concerned. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Black.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for allowing CM Black to be a part of the project. We're looking forward to it, and it's a very exciting project for us to head into. But according to the executive summary here, the cost of the work per the contract documents that was prepared by Yates Kreisberg Architects and the project manual provided by Yates Kreisberg and the bid package that was put together by C.M. Black Construction, the cost of the project was $1,189,333. This consists of the trade package cost of $959,734, along with the contractor's insurance program of $22,975, and then adding to it the performance and payment bonds of $10,590 with the builder's risk of $2,800 for a total cost of the work at $996,099 with the general, with C.M. Black's general conditions of $70,904 and a fee of $79,318, including a construction manager contingency of 4% based on the cost of the work of $43,017. This totals up to $1,189,338 with a deduct alternate suggested by the county representatives to deduct the FM 200 fire suppression of $11,304, making the guaranteed maximum price $1,178,034. Throughout the bid process, as far as participation, we had about 116 companies that requested pre-qualification information to be able to bid the project. At that time, only 75 companies did participate in the bid process. And as far as the county had a 10% goal for the historically underutilized businesses, and we had a successful percentage of 30.55 underutilized businesses that were successful in low bids. Also, we had local subcontractors of 30% that were successful, local contractors entering the project. As far as the general conditions and the fee, it is 15.08%, 15.08% of the amount that is allowable by contract of 15.25%. And we do have the performance and payment bonds included. That was $10,590.
Yeah, just to talk a little bit about that, what that price includes, that contingency, any unused contingency comes back to the county. The 15.08%, that is governed by statutes according to the CM risk standards and the general statutes. So they are bound by that, and therefore they're there. The FM 200 system that we pulled out was actually a dry fire suppression system that was just going to be installed in one area for the ballots. It'll still be protected by the water, by the overall sprinkler system, but that system was for just a small room, which was 12 by 12, somewhere around in there. It was going to be $11,000 to install that system, so we pulled that out. But as Mr. Black said, 30% on minority businesses and 30% plus for local businesses as well. That were part of the awarded contracts. There were several more that bid, but of the ones that were awarded, that were actual low bids, so they exceed 30% of the project. So that's a pretty good number for us, much higher than we had expected. So when we talk about the space itself, you've got all the details on all those bids in your packet if you want to research those, if you care to do that. The general conditions, that's CM Black's staff and subs on site. And then the fee is actually their fee for performing the CM at risk job, or the CM at risk duties for us. Mr. Kreisberg is here to talk a little bit about the space. If you could just talk a little about the age of the building, what it is, and why it's designed the way it is, that'd be great.
Okay, sure. Let me try to get you acclimated a little bit. This is the building that the Board of Elections is going to go in. The street is out here. Troutman's is right across the street from that. There's kind of an open area here, which is the entry to the entire project. There's the original Coke building, which actually sits right here. The two-story building that the newspaper is moving into sits right there. Sherman-Williams, a little paint store, sits here on the corner, and all of the parking for the complex kind of sits here in the back. Obviously, there's some great street parking out in the front that can be used as well. But the way this building is set up, the main entry is right here off of this two-story public space out between the buildings. So on voting day, or for anybody that's coming to the building, they would be either approaching from the parking lot back here, or off the street parking here, and coming in this front door here. We have spent a little bit of extra money for the owners of the building in upfitting these two spaces on either side of the entry that will be for potential future retail spaces, that, you know, a coffee shop or a newspaper stand or whatever, that will be developed by the by Marston's later on. But the main entry is here. There's a rear entry with a ramp here off the parking here, and this is the area where all the voting equipment and things will be located. So when there's coming to the project to get all the voting signs and all the ballots and distribute them to all the voting precincts, this ramp and entry here is ideal for allowing those kind of activities to occur off this rear entrance here while not impeding the public entry to the front here. There's also another service entry here off the back that will allow all the large voting machines, which are kept back here, to be rolled out, put on a truck, and driven to the various precincts. So in a lot of ways, this particular building here actually worked out well for Board of Elections, probably more so than the original design up there at the triangle area, in that we've got better access for this building, with it being a single-story building and not having to share elevators and stairs and things like that with the previous design that we were talking about. The way the building is subdivided inside, there's a large open space here which is up underneath the curved structure of the building. I don't know if any of you guys have remember being in it when you used to go buy ice cream up here at the front, but there's kind of some bowstring trusses here, and there's a curved roof, and we've taken that particular space there and left the volume in the space, so we have some high walls on the side. We're expressing the structure. We've got some paddle fans, we've got some skylights, things like that. But that's the space that the public will come into here at the reception counter here, where they'll, if they have questions or they need to pick up anything relative to voting, they'll come to this point here. So they'll be within this large open space here. You know, the historic things about this building, you know, we've tried to kind of keep those and express those in this very public space up here at the front. The rooms in the back here are more utilitarian type spaces that are used predominantly for storage, so we're really not having to do very much upfit back there whatsoever. You know, there'll even be concrete floors and masonry walls exposed, and exposed structure back there as well. Along the edges here, we have some offices and the Board of Elections conference room. There's some public spaces up here which are used for filing and for maps when people want to come in and try to find out what area they're voting in. And we have a multi-purpose type room here which will be used for training by the Board of Election staff, but could also be used as kind of a community room if desired. So you know, that's a great room there to do all kind of instructional things. And it'll also be used for one-stop voting as well, so people will come to that space to vote. With that, we've also got some public toilets here that can be shared. The way the building is kind of set up from a security standpoint, this portion of the building can be accessed, has its own entry and its own exit, so that the remainder of the building is secure while that's being used for other functions or for one-stop voting. With that, I guess if there's any other questions.
The two spaces that Mr. Kreitzberg was talking about there at the front, we actually own those spaces, but part of the agreement, when we purchased it, we leased it back to the Morrison Brothers, and that they intend to use it, to lease it out for retail space. Any of the costs that will be incurred during this project to rough in the utilities to those spaces will be reimbursed by the Morrison Brothers, and do you remember what that number was?
I think it was about 16.
That's what I was thinking.
Something like that. It's just really,
Like-
the only thing we've really done is we've run some conduit for future electrical services, those spaces, some sprinkler systems, things like that, basic infrastructure. We haven't done a lot in there, and we've left that pretty much to them because they really don't know, how those spaces are going to be developed depending upon who actually goes in there. I mean, it may be, that they try to put some tables and chairs and things out here if they become, eating establishments.
What was the number?
16,431.
Yeah, so 16,000 of that will be, of the final cost there will be reimbursed to the county by the Morrison Brothers. Some of the other things that we've done in here is we've tried to incorporate some green items or sustainable items. We've skylights,
Right.
showers,
There's a shower back here.
bike racks.
Yeah, bike
We're
rack up here.
using a lot of recycled content materials during the construction. We're also recycling anything that's left to be pulled out of the building. We're recycling all of that. We're using regional type materials for doors, for any of the wood products and that type of stuff too. So,
I mean, I think the biggest attribute, even from a LEED standpoint, is that we're taking an existing building and renovating it. Oftentimes you end up tearing buildings like this down to replace them with new buildings, and that's kind of contrary to the aspects of LEED. It's most important to try to use the things that have already been there, and I think by renovating this building, we're really doing that. We're taking a building that's been there, well, much longer than I've been around, and, can certainly be here for, another generation of folks. But I think with this project and the fact that the newspaper is going into the Coke building, I think that these two projects are really providing the impetus for this whole project to kind of really take root and grow. And I think all of us who've been in the Concord area know that this project has kind of been vacant and in need of a use for a number of years. And I think we're all happy that, the county has chosen to try to develop this for Board of Elections. I think that's a very good thing to have done.
with that in mind, Mr. Kreitzberg and Mr. Black or myself can answer any questions you may have about the process, why the design, again, the bidding process, and that type of thing as well. So if you have any questions, we'll.
Commissioner Burridge?
You said that the Morrison Brothers were going to take those two spaces, lease them from the county. Are they paying the county to lease those buildings?
That was part of the price that we had established from the beginning.
That was part of the
That we
price of
would
the
lease
building,
them.
that they get that?
Yes, sir. We leased them back. I think it was $1 a year for 25 years or 50 years. I can't remember what it was.
99 years.
99 years.
The reason that we were required to take that space at all was because the fire marshal
Fire marshal.
had determined that the firewall, which would be the, I guess, the south wall of that building, could not sit closer than, I think it was 11 feet to the property line. So we had to actually buy additional property from them, which didn't change the original price. But the quid pro quo was that we would lease that space that we had to buy because of that setback back to the Morrisons. So basically, no money changed hands on it with reference to it, but it was because we had to meet that setback requirement in order to be able to meet the fire code.
Yeah, it was not, that square footage was not part of the original price. However, we did assume ownership of it. The price did not go up. The other alternative was we would go back, we would have to go in and add to that wall to extend the firewall and make it I don't know the technical term for it there, but Kyle or Bobby, you still here? Yeah, but That's, yeah, we would have to either go back in and rebuild that wall, that firewall, to make it, I think it was a 4-hour wall versus a 2-hour wall, which would have been a pretty good expense. So therefore, they agreed that they would include that price for no additional cost to the county if we agreed to lease it right back to them. And they intend to put a coffee, their intentions or their hopes to have a coffee or pastry shop there and some other small retail shop there as well.
Seemed like a pretty good deal for them. I don't know about the county.
Any cost that the county is bearing to bring utilities to those 2 spaces are being reimbursed back. Now, they had no intentions of selling that space to start with. We were not going to be buying that. In effect, they did the county a favor by allowing us to move that property line out so that we did not have to enhance that internal firewall there.
Well, you was talking about building a firewall at them 2 spaces, right?
No, the original, right there where Mike said.
Existing wall right here.
Yeah,
It
Yeah.
says-
the original property line was gonna run right within about 11 or 12 inches of that wall. The codes would not permit us to do that
Right.
without enhancing that wall from a 2 to a 4-hour fire rating.
What was that, another layer of 5/8 sheetrock?
No, it has really more to do with the structure. When you have a area separation wall like that between, the structure has to be able to fall away on either side of that wall should there be a fire on one side or the other. And the way this, the structure is set up for both areas on either side of that wall, it uses that wall as load bearing for both sides. So it's more than just adding sheetrock on either side of the wall. You would have to have gone in there and established a separate line of structure there and another separate line of structure there, meaning beams and columns and footings and things. So the cost of having to go in there to do that was just going to be prohibitive. And I think, what Mike Downs is saying is essentially, the county did not pay to buy that space. The only thing that, is that space is owned by the county, but they didn't pay a dime to get it, and they're not paying a dime to upfit it either. So it's really just a form of ownership, instead of letting that be separate ownership for the Marsons, which wouldn't work from a building code standpoint. The county owns that in name only, but any costs associated with that improvement or use is borne by Marsons.
And the value is what we saved on not having to build that
Yes,
second
right.
wall, which is transferred, that's the value of paying back to them for that.
Right, so you're really saving money by this arrangement.
My recollection, and I don't know all the details of the construction, was that the Department of Insurance got involved in this whole issue, and
Right.
they're the ones that ultimately made the determination. And I think we would ultimately have to construct 2 additional walls.
That's what I
One on
said,
either
yeah.
side of
Right.
the existing
Of the wall.
wall. And the cost was just going to be, I forget what the estimate was, but it was prohibitive.
Yeah.
So pretty much it's like just a balance sheet. We took down what the cost of those walls would be on one side, and we looked at the cost of what it would be, what that
Right.
space would rent for, and then
Right. I
looked
think
at those
that-
two things. And
I think
Actually, what we did was,
We didn't
we were
cost
gonna have to
anything.
build another wall
Yeah.
internally.
Right.
So by doing it this way, we do not have to build that wall, and we incur no additional cost for doing the other space, because all of the new costs are borne by the Morrison brothers.
Just to make it clear, if it wasn't, this issue didn't come up until after the board had already agreed to the price on the property. And then when this came up, it looked like there was going to be a considerable extra expense involved to put the new firewall in, and so the Morrisons agreed to this arrangement that Mike described, so there wouldn't be any additional cost to the county.
Actually, we got that entrance area in the center out of it, because that's owned by the county as well.
Right.
Commissioner Poole?
I'm not certain if I heard right. Is there a shower in this building?
Yeah, there's a toilet room back here, an individual kind of toilet can be used by men and women, and there's just a single shower right there.
Is there a need for a shower at the Board of Elections building? I mean, I'm
Well,
sure it's
that's
not a
tip.
whole lot, but.
We were trying to meet lead criteria on this, and having a place for a shower for people who want to bicycle to work or walk, having that available is one of the criteria for lead points.
Well, also, I mean, there's going to be a lot of politicians in that building too, so.
Yeah, you need to take a shower after you talk to them, right?
Hey, I can understand that you're going for points on leads, but other than that, if it's not necessary, it really is not necessary for the certification. I don't understand why we would put a shower in there. It seems to me like it's going to be an expense for a coat rack. I can't imagine many people would use it, but that's just me. I know
And
that's
it may
going to
not
come
be,
out
but
somewhere.
That's something that I would propose doing in every building we construct, just for those people who are going to take advantage of it. I'd rather they take a shower after they, right there.
Mr. Black, in regards to the steel price, did steel go up? Because there was quite a bit of difference between the estimated price and the actual price of the steel that's going to be used.
Steel has gone up tremendously in the last 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
So there is definitely an increase in that.
It seems like all the other, it said, the only other thing that kind of was odd to me was the gypsum board seems like it's gone down. It was much less than what the budget was. I don't know.
You also have to understand that the budget was an in-house estimate from us, and it's very possible that we could have missed some of the estimate that much too.
Okay. But it seems like everything else was pretty much in line.
Pretty close. We're pretty proud to be that close on a budget price with the in-house estimate.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to place this under new business or consent? What's the preference of this board?
I move we place it on the consent agenda.
We have a motion to place this on the consent agenda. We have a second?
I'm not going to second that. I would rather it be under new business, but he's already made his motion.
No, that's fine. We can do it.
You change your motion?
I'll change the motion to
New business?
Yeah.
We have a motion to place this under new business. We have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This is matters placed on new business. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you all, gentlemen. Next matter we have is page 204. Is the appeal of a rezoning case and public hearing. This time I call, Mr. Cook.
I'll be glad to take this one. There's been some developments that have occurred since this agenda entry was made. But just by way of background, as the summary indicates, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered a rezoning of about 2.61 acres from office industrial to office limited commercial for some property down on Pioneer Mill Road near the intersection of Highway 2427. That rezoning was approved, but it did not meet the required high vote majority for it to be fully decided at the planning and zoning level. Namely, it has to be a high vote requirement of 75% in favor, and it did not meet that. As a result, it's automatically appealed to the Board of Commissioners for a whole new hearing on that same rezoning. In the meantime, there's been a lot of discussions between the applicant, who has an option or a contract on the property, and adjacent property owner concerning a limitation of some uses. That has not been worked out, but it's come to the point where apparently the applicant, by a letter that he sent to Cassie Watts this morning, indicates that he has terminated his contract for the purchase of the property and wishes to withdraw his rezoning application. Since he is only a holder of a contract interest and is not the record owner, we had asked that we get an indication from the owner himself or herself that they wanted to have that rezoning application withdrawn as well. It turns out that apparently the owner has passed away in the meantime, and so now we're dealing with a potential estate issue in order to be able to get that kind of signature. So what we would ask that you do in view of all these events is just, if you would just move it to the April agenda, and let's see if this takes care of itself in the meantime. I mean, from all appearances, at least from this email, the applicant is withdrawing, but we'd like to have full confirmation of it before we go forward. if it's left on the March agenda, the county's going to incur some advertising costs for the rezoning. We'd like to try to avoid that.
Move we table it to the April.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second? Okay, before we get to that, I wanted to, from what I understand is my firm has some involvement, not with the zoning request, but with an adjoining or adjoining landowner. In voting to table it, that, I don't see how that creates a conflict from my vote.
It does not.
Okay.
It does not.
So if this does come up to vote, I would be moving to recuse myself as regards to supporting or not supporting the project, but I wanted everybody to understand that, what's going on. So we have a motion and we have a second to table this until the April work session. Anything further?
Let me just mention one other thing. I think I made a statement that's not entirely accurate. Actually, I think the vote was, it was approved, and then there was an appeal by an aggrieved party, namely the adjacent property owner, which caused it to come up here on appeal as a matter of right. So it's in the same posture, but I think that's the more accurate way to describe it.
So we have a motion to place this under our work session in April. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the page 228. It is the emergency management non-renewal of fire protection contract with the Jackson Park Volunteer Fire Department. I would call on our emergency management director, Bobby Smith. Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon. Sorry, baritone
Have good
voice.
voice protection there, Bobby.
I thought it was Bobby Barry White for a second.
That's right, sorry. No. We're here before you to ask you to consider to place on the regular meeting agenda a request to authorize the county manager in Cabarrus County to send a letter to the Jackson Park Volunteer Fire Department advising them that it is our intent to no longer consider contracting with them for fire protection services. As we evaluate each year our fire protection contracts and look at our districts, that's come to a point where the Jackson Park Fire Department is basically surrounded by municipal fire departments that are providing 24-hour protection 7 days a week. So as we're moving through looking at other options to providing service for the district, by our contract, we have to give the department a 90-day notice, which would mean we would have to send a letter out by April 1st. So we're requesting that that letter be sent, you authorize the county manager to send that letter advising them of our intent not to contract as we continue with looking at the other options to provide service for the district. And if I could answer any questions, I'd be glad to.
Any questions for Mr. Smith?
Just one.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, because I know we talked a little about it last time. And obviously we've gotten some letters and some not necessarily phone calls, but emails and stuff from several of the folks there. And this is one of our legacy volunteer fire departments. Is there part of that consideration is looking at the other roles they may be able to play, that non-firefighting roles with?
Yes, sir. There's actually several options on the table for their members to continue participating either in as reserve firemen or as volunteer firemen in other districts that are surrounding them. So there are options for them to continue on service. Yes, sir.
Okay.
By doing this, it does not affect fire coverage if something were to happen?
No, sir. There would not be a lapse. We would have a contract in place.
With one of the municipalities to cover all of the area?
Yes, sir.
And that contract would be at a savings for, it's not going to cost us any more?
No, sir. And in fact, it will save us partially some money in the staffing grant that we provide for partial coverage. We will save that money, but as far as service delivery, we'll actually gain 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week coverage.
And it does not affect the residents in that in regards to their fire insurance? That doesn't go up?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Poole?
I was going to ask, will their fire insurance rates go down possibly by being covered now by a city
I'll have to,
fire
Steve,
department
I'll have to defer to
versus a volunteer?
Let me grab the fire marshal up here real quick.
It could, with the city having a lower rating, depending on.
Can you just go to them?
Sorry.
Mike?
Just don't talk real deep.
Currently, Jackson Park is at a 6, so depending on who provides that service to the district, it could lower the insurance rating. That is correct.
I would make a motion to put this under new business, and the reason for that, instead of consent, is to make sure that It gets discussed so that the residents in that fire district and the volunteer firefighters that serve that area will make sure that they know that that's what's being discussed. That would be the reason for that, I would say, to put it under new business.
We have a motion to place this under new business. We have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter we have is G5, is the emergency management approval of ambulance piggyback purchase, $250,000, and related budgetary amendment. I will call on our EMS Director, David Hampton.
I'm here to request that you approve the ambulance piggyback purchase based on a bid that Wake County did for 11 units. This would save us around $2,500 per unit, at least that much savings. We're going to need to be replacing these units based on the replacement policy that we have here in the county. And by doing it at this time, we can save considerable amount of money by doing a piggyback and not waiting. We're seeing chassis prices go up at least $2,500 a year. And the quicker we can buy, the better off. And now with the fuel prices, I'm not sure how much more that's going to affect not only building prices, but, you know, chassis prices also.
Any questions for Mr. Hampton? How does this, this saves us because we are using a contract that is going to be entered into by Wake County?
Right, it's already been entered into by Wake County. We can legally piggyback by not going out for bid, which saves us ultimately money.
Does that cost us to piggyback onto their
No.
purchase?
No.
And are we, you know, you're coming to us with this request, I would assume that we are in need of these
Yes.
items.
To meet the replacement policy that we have.
What's the replacement policy that we have now?
125,000.
Okay. So it's at least 125,
Right.
if not more.
And ultimately, this falls into making sure that our response times stay low because we don't have vehicle failures. Customer service, we have nicer units. I mean, we've got a good fleet. This would replace pretty much, we didn't buy any trucks this current year. And we really need to buy trucks every year in order to stay within that policy, or we start having trucks really phase out.
Where's the money coming from?
Commissioner's contingency.
Okay. Any other questions?
What happens to the ones that are being replaced?
We have been offering them for volunteer fire departments to use as first responders units. If not, they're considered surplus and sold.
Do we have a motion to place this under new business or consent? What's the?
I would make a motion to put it under consent.
I'll
We
second
have,
that.
we have a motion and a second to place this matter under the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is G6, which is the banking services contract award. Mrs. Fearrington.
Hi. We, first part of February, we sent out RFPs for our banking services, which will expire on June 30th this year, and anticipating getting responses back on March 11th. At that time, we'll take about a week to evaluate the bids and then make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for your approval on the 21st at your regular meeting. So at this time, we're in between when we're getting our bids back in.
How long was the contract? The last contract was 4 years or 5 years?
It's 5 years.
5
So
years.
it has been 5 years.
Okay.
We did have our, originally back in 2006, it was First Charter, which was ultimately bought up by Fifth Thirds, and they, we asked them to honor the contract, which they did.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for Mrs. Fearrington? We have a motion to place this under new business? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the financing options for the qualified school construction bonds. Mrs. Dubois.
Yes, September of last year, came in front of the board to discuss the qualified school construction bonds for $14 million projects between Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools. I just kind of want to give you a little bit of an update. At that point in time, we were progressing to enter into a private placement with a bank. However, that private placement did not work out, and we were unsuccessful and had to move towards a public offering. Just wanted to point out at that point with the private placement, the closing costs were estimated not to exceed $75,000. However, with a public placement, those costs were estimated at about $183,000. So the cost difference is about $108,680 is what we estimate at this point. I've also got a spreadsheet attached for your for you guys to review to see if you were interested in looking at options with interest rates. What has happened recently is the Fed funds rate has been reduced. The interest rate in the market for what we can get the debt for will take a little bit of time to catch up with that interest rate. So at this point in time, our options as of February 24th, if you look on page 2, I believe 244, shows the 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15-year terms, what the interest rate would be versus the 0% interest that we were looking at originally. You can see what the annualized interest payment would be and what the annual payment for debt service would be each year, and also the total payments would be over the term of the debt. So I wanted to show you this information to see if you had any interest in entertaining a potential partial interest payment that would be required for the county, or if you would like to continue to pursue the zero interest. But just to give you an idea of what the market looked like on February 24th through this illustration.
So what are you showing us is that on February the 24th, if we had agreed to an interest rate of 0.13% or 0.73%, it would have sold?
Correct.
Okay. And that is, it is less than 1%.
Correct.
Is the interest rate that would have sold. Now, the differential between what the federal government is offering and what we have, there may be a little bit of a cushion that would consume this as well, so it would end up being an interest-free loan.
Yeah, the underwriter who's worked on these calculations really feels like the 11 years will come back to the zero. But to give you an idea of what the 11-year annual payment would be a little over $2 million. So we had originally thought that we would get the 15 years, but the market's done a lot of changing over the last several months. I mean, we hit an all-time high in December with interest rates, with everybody flooding the market to get all their BABs and their unique debt instruments issued before the end of the fiscal year, or excuse me, end of the calendar year. So there was a lot of stuff out in the market, and the market, as far as the debt market has been concerned, for the first couple of months this year, there's hardly anything that's out there. So he feels like that, would most likely could get the zero interest rate. Just wanted to let you know that it most likely will be closer to the 11-year term than it would be the 15 that we talked about before. The payments, if we were to sell now, would start in fiscal year 2016, and to give you an idea of what they would look like. So, if you're still interested in 0% interest, most likely it's going to be an 11-year term, and it'll be an annual principal payment of $2 million, versus if we could have gotten the 15-year at zero, it would have been $1.3 million. But just wanted to show you everything that was going on in the market to give you an idea and see if you still wanted to continue with the 0% interest, and also wanted to point out the additional closing costs because we went from a private placement to a public placement.
Any questions for Mrs. Dubois?
This doesn't change at all, though. I know that one of the things with the QSCABs, that when we were putting it together, one of the requirements was that all the bids had to be done at union wage rate. Does that change that at all by going from a change in the placement, so that would stay the same?
It does not change any of those requirements.
Okay. The criteria for it. Okay.
And if you choose to stay at the 0% interest, really there's no action that needs to be taken. I just wanted to point out the change in closing costs so you would be aware of that. But if you do want to entertain any of these options, that would be the only need to move on from this point.
What was the projected annual payment when we were hoping to sell them in December? And how does this impact the budget 11 years versus the 15 years, other than the obviousness of the spreadsheet? But I don't remember what we were projecting out that the payment was going to be. Is it something that, I don't know that I don't want to put you on the spot and say, what is your recommendation? But I'd kind of like to know.
What's your recommendation?
I'd kind of like to put you on the spot for what is your recommendation. As far as, I understand doing the 0%, but when you shorten the term, then obviously that raises the annual payment. And
Correct.
we're already looking at some interesting budget situations. The crystal ball we've had in the past has been a little bit fuzzy. And not that I expect you to be perfect. And what year did you say this would start? 2015?
2016.
2016. I mean, still, I don't know, what leeway would you give us? Or
I mean, what you're looking at right now, if you had an annual payment at 11 years of $2.1 million, it would roughly be still in that a little more than a penny on the tax rate from the projections that we've talked about. I think it all just comes down to, how fast we need to sell the debt. The other thing is if you decide to stick with 0% interest and it doesn't happen by December 31st, we're done. We can't sell it past that date. So, I mean, of course, $1.4 million would be so much easier to absorb in your budget versus $2.1 million, but then again, you're going to spend almost $2 million more over the term of the debt. So I don't know what we perceive 2016 to look like, and we've already had the discussions of the revaluation year. So I'm not really sure exactly, what option is the best option. I mean, there is a potential, too, for some interest earnings once we start placing the money into the account, because after the 5th year, we will start making payments, and there'll be a balloon payment at the end. But that still would have been the same money you would have earned if you had 0% interest, so it's not like you're gaining anything off of it either. So I think it just comes down to what your tolerance level is and what you think is, something that is doable. But at this point, we've talked about no new debt over the next 5 years. Is that new 5 years, the 5 years we're going to have in this year's budget plan? Or was it last year and only 4 more years? So, I mean,
What might be good is if we talk about this during our budget process, when we have our meetings in May. That way Commissioner Meisner will be here, and we can look at it that way. I think that may be better to do.
Well, I don't disagree with that. The only problem would be between now and May, if something changes in the market, would we have been better if we had given staff the authority and bond counsel the authority to go forward with it? I mean, we've already said that we've already committed the previous board to go forward with these. So that would be my only question, is putting it off till then. Will we back ourselves in the corner in the event the market goes in a certain direction? So
I would assume I'd still have instruction. If it was 0, I could still move forward.
well, that's what you've said. If it's 0, you could still move forward. I guess my comment would be, if it was a half, would we still want to move forward? And, I mean, that's kind of the question at this point in time for me. And I would like for us to go ahead and talk about it at least this month.
Okay.
And whether we make a decision or not, that if it's any different, we have that option. Otherwise, they have the option to go with, if it's 0. Even if it's 0.5%, that's a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
For anything that you're going to do right now. You're not going to get 0.5% anywhere else. So I would hate to see that we get to December 31st and the market's been close but not close enough, and then we just can't do anything, and then we really won't be doing anything for a good length of time. So.
Well, one thing about it is, if we do talk about it this month, it gives us if it is changed from 0% to something else, then things could be put into place to have the construction over the summer, because it is upfitting many of the schools that certainly need it. Commissioner Cruz, did you have something?
No, I'm just going to say that why not just continue to look for the 0%? We've got the budget coming up. We've got some time to, react to this. And when we get to May, we can have that discussion then. But I think we shouldn't limit, if we can't get 0, to go for it. So I think I'm saying the same thing you're saying. So.
Well, what we've said is we can already do it if it's 0.
Yeah, right.
It's just a matter of that happening. But, I mean, I would be interested to know from bond counsel if it's looking more like 0.25% or 0.5%. That's still a bargain. And I'd hate to close the door too quickly, because just like you said about summer. Mm-hmm. So I'm just I would be in favor of just going ahead and discussing it, trying to get some information from bond counsel on where the market is right now. And we could get that at our next meeting. We still don't have to make any changes at that, at this month's meeting.
As I understand it, all four of these, well, 5 of these scenarios would have passed as of February the 24th.
Yeah, that would have been what the rates were at that point in
Right.
time. And he's about on a weekly update of giving me that information. And we've had our call with the rating agency, and the official statement is ready to go. So we pulled the trigger, so to say, as far as that is concerned. And I can send you out updates, to keep you updated, like I get updated on where things are at. But because the market changed a little bit, the federal government changed their rate. We were like right there, and then the federal government said, oh, and they changed their rate down, so now we've got to wait for it to come back in line. So that's kind of where we stand right now. So, I mean, I can't guarantee anything as far as how that'll all turn out. Just was trying to get some idea if you had any interest in any rate whatsoever that the county would incur,
Well,
or if, you had a term that
it's
you
hard
like
to pass
better.
up. It's hard to pass up 3/4% money.
And that would be my point. And at this point in time, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I would make a motion that we put it on the agenda
New business.
for new business, so that we can have a discussion and update,
Okay.
and
The-
see if we want to make any change. If we don't want to make any change, they
Yeah.
still go with the 0%.
The bond
Oh.
counsel is is unavailable, maybe, so that we can get the information.
Well, I'm fine with Ms.
We can get-
Dubois giving us the information at the
fine.
meeting, and then Commissioner Meesemer will be here at that meeting, and
Okay.
if there's a desire to go with less than 0.73% or somewhere in between, then, if there's a desire to change it, we can change it. If it's still 0, that it stays at 0, and they're still operating under the same scenario that they're already operating on. So,
Commissioner Byrd, you got any questions or comments?
I'm still sitting here trying to figure out how you're gonna pay $2,110,000 a year for 11 years, and the total payments is gonna be $14,846. And how do you add that up? 11 times 2 is
It's not
20.
paid, it's not paid over 11 years.
It's gonna be paid less.
It's amortized over 11 years.
So
but
it's gonna be paid
over
off quicker.
It's paid over 6 years, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
At
All
least
right.
that's the way I'm looking at it. Is that correct, Mrs. Dubois?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's paid
It is
about-
a 5-year deferral
Okay.
before the.
I understand that. but
Yeah, it's amortized
Two-
over.
2 million
The
times 11
term's
just didn't come
11,
out.
but 5 years you don't pay. I did the same thing when I calculated, and I went back and I'm like, this is all wrong, but I should have put on there the 5-year deferral of principal. Sorry.
Okay.
Any other? We have a motion to place this under new business. We have a second? I'll give it a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next thing I have is G8, which is the Transportation, North Carolina Department of Transportation, Public Transportation Grant for fiscal year 2011-2012, public hearing. Mr. Bushy. We're missing Mr. Bass. Is he
He's out of town.
incognito?
Here this evening to request a public hearing for our 2012 Community Transportation Grant. It's an annual grant we receive to help assist with administrative cost of the department. This year, we're going to be requesting from the state and federal government $344,617. And like I say, it does require a public hearing.
Any questions for Mr. Bushy at this time?
I move we place this under new business and call for a public hearing on.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Mr. Bushy.
Thank you.
Under G9 is IT and jail, approval of video visitation system expansion piggyback purchase. Mr. Shanley, Chief Deputy Hunt.
We're here today to ask you to approve the piggyback to expand the current video visitation system from 4 units at the annex to 54 at the new housing unit, and from 4 public-sized stations to 24 in the admin building. This is a piggyback of the Kent County, Michigan contract from earlier this year, or late last year, and the total cost is $436,855. The money is currently budgeted in the construction budget.
Any questions for Mr. Shanley or Chief Deputy Hunt?
So this comes out actually out of the jail budget?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Will this allow, selfishly I will ask, will this allow attorneys to be able to purchase the opportunity to meet with clients through the internet?
This first part here does not have that included, but there is an ability to expand it to that, yes.
Okay.
This software that we selected specifically is the only one in the nation that does that.
Okay. And also, will it allow, I know this doesn't, but I've been talking about first appearances, videotape first appearances or video conferencing for first appearances. Is that on the horizon that will be discussed?
It is.
Okay.
It is definitely in this project to be able to do that with this software. With the way the housing unit is constructed, this is required to basically for visitation to occur.
And for the commissioners that don't realize when you've been arrested within 72 hours, you're supposed to have a first appearance in front of a judge. And it allows, with the housing unit not being attached to the courthouse, it allows the prisoners or the defendants to stay in a structured environment instead of taking them out and bringing them over into the courthouse, which recently caused an incident in the courtroom from between two family members.
It's also during visitation, they no
Right.
longer will leave their
pod
or their area. It will all be done via video screens. So there will be no more face-to-face or looking through a window anymore. It'll be.
And you won't have visitors going into the jail either.
Right.
They'll be outside. They'll never come into the facility.
It just creates a much safer environment, I would anticipate. How does the video equipment stay safe?
It's in a steel enclosure mounted on the wall.
Okay. And again, where's the money coming from?
Go ahead.
I don't know I'm not sure which COP issue it is, but
But it's
one
through the
yeah.
It's currently budgeted.
2008 COPS.
And in regards
See?
to the housing unit, that is actually coming in under budget.
Yes, sir. We're expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.3 to 1.4 million to return back to the county.
Now, in regards to this issue, any other questions? Was there a preference to go on the consent agenda or on the new business?
We would place this on the consent agenda.
We have a motion to place this under consent agenda. We have a second. I'll give a second to that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Well, Chief Deputy, before you leave, has there been any further discussion in regards to the legislature and requiring us to house prisoners that are 12 months, or serving a sentence of 12 months or less?
The only thing I do know, I think Eddie Caldwell from the Sheriff's Association was trying to have a meeting today on that very issue because it's been, as you know, it's been brought up and they're going to try to go to the legislature to see if they can fight that, but I don't know where it's going to stand.
And that's going to add an additional $3.6 million expense to the county if that is pushed down to the counties.
And I spoke with Patrice from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and from her knowledge, it's still 12 months, and there's no compromise of 6 months at this point.
Well, at 12 months is 3.6, minimum 3.6.
And quite a few individuals on the floor.
Right. And that would, I guess, this legislature is not providing any money to help us defray that cost.
Correct.
So that's just another unfunded mandate they want to push down to us.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. One of them is that I think that my understanding is that when I talked to Representative Barnhart the other night, that there is some sentiment that there is some move up there in the legislature, although it's been talked about pushing it down with no cost, that there was of actually whatever the prevailing county rate is for that amount for the that's budgeted for housing inmates from other counties, that would be funded by the state. And I think that there's been some talk and discussion of that. But I don't think anything of any consequence yet, so we'll see what happens. But also, the 23rd of March, the NCACC is doing a program for inmate health care. And there's a work out an agreement with apparently a fairly large medical network in the state that will work out a program that's going to be available to all counties to provide for hospital care for inmates. That will be basically get a card, like an insurance card that will be used when you go to the doctor, and it'll be that way they have a network pricing will be applied rather than the full bench rates, I guess is the best
Just
better
to let
term.
you know too, our healthcare provider right now has finally worked out an agreement with Northeast.
Okay.
And I think we ran into some issues last year, but I think that they're on board with each other now as far as the lower rate also.
Okay, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief Deputy.
Thank
you. Next matter we have is G10 is on page 285, which is the Council for a Sustainable Local Economy. At this time, I would like to ask for Mrs. Shannon Johnson to step forward to be introduced. Mr. Day, I would ask that you give us a word about Mrs. Johnson.
Thanks. Last week, Shannon started working with us. She is it's a long title. Where is it? I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's the
Project Manager.
Project Manager for the Sustainable Local Economy project. And I'll let Shannon just tell her a little bit about herself. And she is a county resident, been here a couple of years.
Yes, I'm a county resident. I moved here a little over 2 years ago. Family, we decided we wanted to live in North Carolina, and we spent about 2 to 3 years visiting different cities in North Carolina. And when we hit Concord, everything felt right. So we made the move here. I've been a nonprofit consultant for development and fundraising since I've been here, and working with some small businesses as well. My history is about 15 years of small business development, working for companies and working as consultant for companies, and then about 5 years of the nonprofit piece. So I'm excited to be here. This county has a very diverse landscape. It's a very exciting place to be, and they've already come so far in business development, so I'm really excited to be able to provide some further assistance.
Any questions for Mrs. Johnson at this time? If you'll stay right there. A couple of things is, we have before us is a request to retain the services of Mr. Michael Schuman to assist this council to create a SWOT analysis, a leakage analysis, analysis of home-based business sector, and the strengths and gaps in the county policies in the area, and recommendations how to fill the gaps. And we will also have later this month to the opportunity to appoint various members of the county to the council to create this council, or not to create this council, but actually have warm bodies in the council to help out in doing this. But this is a proposal today, or memorandum of understanding, to retain the services of Mr. Michael Schuman to do that, to come in and help with those services. I know that Mr. Schuman is planning to come in to speak at the Economic Development Stakeholders Luncheon in May 11th, on May the 13th. But, so I think that's very important. But I think this is something, in regards to the cost, is $45,000. Mr. Day, where is this money coming from?
You'll recall when the budget was established for this, we had a $50,000 grant from the Cannon Foundation.
Okay. So, are there any questions, Commissioner Burridge or Commissioner Cruth, for myself, Commissioner Poole, or for Ms. Johnson?
At this time.
Is it a pleasure to place this on the consent agenda or new business? I would think it needs to be under new business to coincide with the appointment of the council members to the council.
I would make a motion to place under new business.
We have a motion to place this under new business, second by Commissioner Burridge. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
One matter, that concludes all of our new business. Am I correct, Mrs. Honeycutt? Okay. The next matter that we have that I wanted to call everyone's attention to is under old business, the memorandum of understanding as it relates to, as a request from the Board of Education. Commissioner Poole and myself, as well as Mr. Day, had a chair-vice chair meeting on March the 3rd with Chairperson Blackwelder and Superintendent Shepard in regards to this and some other topics. Based on that meeting, I don't think that we need to act on this. If I'm incorrect in that assumption, let me know. But we do not need to act on this at this time. And as a result, I would make a motion to remove this from our March 7th old business calendar.
Second.
We have a motion to remove this from our our meeting on March the 7th. We have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next is E2 is the Old Bethel School property. Yeah, I think it would be good to get an update today before we move forward with it on the 21st. Mr. Cook, Mr. Day? We do have a bid in. I'll short circuit this. There is a bid in to purchase the property. One bid was received of $10. That is a very low bid. However, the costs that would be associated with doing anything with the property, tearing it down, fixing it up, is
saving a lot of money.
is just a tremendous amount of money. There is some asbestos in the property, and the removal of the asbestos before it's torn down or when it's upfitted would be a very large expense. I think the last time I read something or heard something about it, it would be in excess of $500,000. So it's quite a bit. If this bid is accepted, then we will not have to worry about it, and also it will turn into probably tax revenue at that point in time, possibly. Or do you know?
I'm not sure. I think the bid was submitted by a fellow on behalf of a nonprofit.
Okay.
I think Mr. Day opened the bid. Did you not?
Okay.
Somebody.
Is Mr. Wright? Mr. Wright, can you talk to us about it, if you don't mind? If you'll come around to the microphone.
Thank you for letting me be here. Actually, what we really want to do is turn this into an outreach ministry, outreach center for the community. Now, what we have done is went around to the whole community and got signatures, over 300 to 500 signatures, and businesses. What we do have, we have several different sponsors that wants to help us take on this major project. We have Walmart, Sam's Club, Apple Ugly, Cheer Wine, and Duke Energy. And we also have Single Source that wants to help us do the roof. Actually, we can go green on several different projects. Actually, what I did do, it did figure out some expense to rehab the building. Actually, it's going to cost $3,500,000 to rehab this building. Now, what we're wanting to do is go green to issue grants. We do have those in place. We have people set up to ready to do this if we do occupy this building. What I do have now is several different programs in place. MegaFest, we'll generate revenue for that. Also, if we do occupy the building, we have several different programs that we're gonna put in place in this building. Actually, we have the Blue Baboon, which is the carnival, would like to come out and set up their business there, if you know what that is. We had that at MegaFest. They came out and they donated their services there. And we do have several different other businesses who would like to come out and occupy some space if we do have this building. We do have an architect that's in place. We just need the go-ahead to actually get the building and start doing something for the building. Actually, I did some research. It's been standing there for like 8 years. It's been vandalized, so the thing is, it's going to probably cost more now than it was 5 years ago to rehab this building. So what we're wanting to do is pretty much put a lot of grant money in place, and we do have those resources to do that. Any questions?
Any questions?
We have several different programs that we can generate revenue, and I don't know if you want me to go through all of those. We have a list of like 10 to 15.
Sounds like you got a lot of good things going on.
Yes, sir. And what we want to do, we have set a program in place that a guy that weighs 770 pounds, and he's been bedridden for 10 years. And we're trying to get him some help through the Duke University and the Murdoch Foundation. We went out to interview him, and we are doing outreach. As far as not being in the building, we're doing it outside the building. We do prison ministry, we do walkathons, we do several different other events to raise money to try to purchase this Bethel school. And we really want to try to do something for the community. And due to the fact that we have been pursuing this for 2 years, and we did get a good response about the community that wants to come out and try to help actually rehab this building. And I really think that we can get the resources if I get the building to do that. Okay. And I would take all my energy to do that. 2 years from that point to this point, I didn't think I was going to get this far, but I have. So it's really in my heart to get this done for this building. And what we want to do to try to keep the historical part of the school standing and try to rehab the inside of it, but keep the historical part there. But there's a lot of people that's been there at that old school, has memories there. And I think it's a good location, actually, for the surrounding counties. We have an area on 50, 51, and Pineville has been growing up in that area locally on 2427 on Almar Road. That subdivision has been growing up. So there's different communities can be at this facility. There's Monroe, there's Albemarle, Locust. We do have McDonald's that wants to come out and donate their services to help us renovate this building too. So we have the resources, we just need to build it to get something started. If we have that, we can get started on it.
Is there any questions for Mr. Wright?
I just like to make a comment that I think, having been involved in this thing since 2003, up and down and around and having discussions with the community and then being able to save money for the county now by not having to tear it down, and we have a person here that's enthusiastic about taking, I think this is kind of what we wished, as long as 4 or 5 years ago, somebody come forward. And I think I'm wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Burge?
Did we offer it for bids 4 or 5 years ago?
We've had it up for bid for 2 different times since last spring, I believe, for about 12 months.
Yeah, we tried to work out some
How long has this bid been?
How long has this bid?
Yeah. When was it presented?
July, wasn't it?
28th of February.
28th of February.
Right. We first offered to sell or lease it to the city of Midland, and that was not accepted. And then we tried to sell it on the open market, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And then we moved. Then we did not an auction, but we did a bid, and that did not produce any bids at $300,000 or more, and then it was reduced to 0.
We don't have to wait 30 days for an upset bid?
I'll turn that over to our county attorney.
It was not advertised with an upset period the way this was advertised this last time. The bids were opened on February 28th. This was the only bid, as I understand it, and it's really just up to the commissioners at this point as to what your pleasure is concerning whether to accept that bid, to not accept it, to accept it on certain conditions. If you choose to do that, really your options are open to you as to exactly what you would like to do at this point.
Now, I talked to some people Friday that when they found out what the bid was, they sort of felt like they might want to come back and bid on it. So I don't know that they would, but I think we'll at least give it a 30-day notice, let people know what's going on.
Well, we've got it right now. We have the right today to either accept it today or to set it on for, to accept the bid and sell on the 21st, and then have the closing, I guess, as soon as possible thereafter. We can do that. And that would give people 2 weeks to, if they're going to do something, I would think they'd want to do something in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would think so.
So do you want to?
I just should point out there are several different methods of disposing of public property. One of them is using that upset bid process. That was not the one that was employed here. This was close to an absolute auction, with the difference being that you have the right to either accept the bid, the low bid or high bid, or reject it. So your action with regard to this one is either to accept it or to reject it. And then you can determine after that whether you want to try and sell it through the same fashion, more of an absolute auction sort of. It's actually called sealed bid auction, or whether you want to go through an upset bid process. I would recommend, just because of past experiences that we've had with the upset bid process and how long those can drag out, and how frustrated everybody can get as a result of that, to do a sealed bid, which is what we did now, or this time. So it would just be a decision as to whether you're willing to accept the bid that was received, and it was the only one, and many people knew about the process, including the town of Midland, and I think just about everybody that lives there, or reject it and then decide on either the same type of process or another process, and the county attorney can go through all the different varieties of methods that are available to you.
Well, I don't think most people realize we was going to give it away.
Can I say something?
I guess that's in the eye of the beholder, whether we're giving it away or whether we are,
Well,
you know, I mean, and the thing about it is like what Mr. Wright said, is to upfit it and to fix it up the way it needs to be. We had a estimate of about $3 million, and that was 3.5 years ago.
And then the cost of raising it was going to be.
The cost of tearing it
500,000.
down is going to be about $1 million to $1.5 million. Okay, about $1 million.
No, all I'm saying, I don't mind you doing it. All I'm saying is I think we ought to give it 30 days to give some other people a chance, if they want to.
Okay.
Let them know what the bid is, and if anybody comes forward, fine. If they don't, then let it go like it is.
Well, the only thing I would say to that is that it has been well publicized, and you know, it's been out there, I would imagine, since the beginning of February, if not the end of January. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
I'm looking at the resolution that you adopted on January 18th. I think that was the day that it was actually, that you approved the auction sale method, and then the advertisements went out shortly after that.
Okay.
Let me also just point out that in that resolution, it says that you will actually either award the bids or reject them on March 21st at your regular meeting.
So do we have a motion to place this under new business, or actually old business, for March the 21st?
I'll move to that because I think it gives us 2 weeks. Then somebody wants to come forward in that period of time. We won't be to make a decision until the 21st. And then, if we see another bid come in, then we may, Mr. Wright may come back with, won't come back even with something higher at that point. So.
We have a motion to place this under new business for March 21st. We have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Well, go ahead and do the vote, and then I want to ask a question. Or however you want to do that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, my question would be, on the 21st, I'd like to know your timeline for accomplishing what you're going to do, because I would not want to see selling that property for $10 and it still be in the same condition 10 years from now, or 5 years from now. So, or 2 years from now. I mean, I would want to know what your timeline is and get that firmed up. Is that And that's the whole point of us trying to accept what I would agree with. $10 is nowhere near what I would have even envisioned had come through. I'm not certain what amount I thought would come through, but I do think $10 is extremely low. But I would like to know when it's actually going to be done, because I wouldn't want it to sit there for any length of time. I mean, I know you've said we're ready to go and everything else, but I'd like to get some more assurances that you do in fact have that in place to move forward, and what your timeline would be to actually be in the building.
Okay, so what did the commissioner decide? Did they give me the
We
building?
put it on the agenda for March the 21st.
Okay, is the building open up for another bid? Is that what I'm understanding?
Now, this is on the agenda for March 21st. Your bid is on the agenda for March 21st.
It's the only bid on the agenda for March 21st.
Okay. So you
But
just
what
wanna-
I'm telling you is I'd like to know what your timeline is.
Okay.
Based on what you said today, we don't have your timeline. We just know that you want to do something. I know you've been working on it for a while, but I just think it's fair to know that this is what you're planning on doing, and this is what we can actually expect from you, that this can be accomplished. Because it's an eyesore. It's been there for a number of years, obviously, sitting there deteriorating, and even for the whopping sum of $10, I would not want it to be sitting there deteriorating even longer. That's the whole point of us trying to do something with it now, is that it needs to be either torn down or it needs to be refurbished.
Yes, ma'am.
And whichever way it is, it needs to commence quickly. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. One other thing before we go into a closed session is under F8, which is at the very bottom of our agenda packet. It's on page 339. I would ask that we take the proclamation declaring March and April 2011 as One Book, One Community Month, and Saturday, April 9th as Tim O'Brien Day in Cabarrus County. If we can take that off and place it under new business. I don't anticipate it needing to be a presentation by Mrs. Uri. If you will give me the information, I'll be happy to talk about it. This is, I think it's very important that this gets out as much as possible to the public in regards to the many activities that are going on as it relates to this book. It's the idea, the concept is one book that is read throughout the community and discussed throughout the community. There have started already presentations or book discussions on March the 1st, and they're going on through the end of March. Judge Horton is doing one presentation. Mr. McNeely is doing a couple of presentations. Quincy Collins has done one presentation. So I think it's a very good opportunity. And we heard earlier tonight, earlier this afternoon, all the wonderful things that the ECA leaders are doing, and this is another opportunity, not part of the ECA, but it's another opportunity for the community to get involved and see. There's also some things going on at Frank Bliss Park, and there's also going to be a discussion by Mr. O'Brien on April the 9th.
Yeah, I actually made a comment. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the book myself, and it's a fascinating read. So I would encourage people to get the book and read it.
Yep, I just started it over the weekend, so you're going to beat me on finishing it, but it is interesting.
What has taken me a week to get through 25 pages, my wife read the book in a weekend, so. But I do encourage everybody to participate and to come out to the libraries and the different places. That information, if you would like to know, is on the website of the county library website. You can either go directly to the county library website or through the county website, go through the A through Z, and then it will take you to libraries, and you can get that information through there. And there's also many handouts that Mrs. Uri has to hand out. With that, I believe that covers all of our agenda except for a closed session meeting. Is there anything discussed by this board? We have a motion to go into closed session to, let's see here, make certain I get it right.
Expansion.
To discuss the location or expansion of industries.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.